OmniServer wedges, which are included with OmniServer Professional Edition, are built-in components that provide powerful supplemental capabilities that expand the functionality of OmniServer beyond its core connectivity and data parsing abilities for non-standard devices. One of these flexible components is the OmniServer File Wedge, which allows you to log your device data to text file or Microsoft Excel in a highly configurable format with configurable conditions. And it provides this ability right in OmniServer, eliminating the need for separate external components. The File Wedge gives you the ability to log your process data from your devices based on fully configurable conditions for further analysis over time. In this video, I'll step you through how easy it is to configure a File Wedge in OmniServer Professional, and you can see the results yourself. First, in the OmniServer configuration that you can see here, we need to go to the Clients section, which is available in the tree view here on the left. You can see File Wedge in my list of clients along with the other supported wedges and standard client interfaces such as OPC and SweetLink. Now just a note, if you're not seeing any of the wedges available in your clients section, that would indicate you currently have a license installed other than OmniServer Professional or trial version. The wedges will be available only if you're using the free trial version or if you have a Professional Edition license installed. So next I want to just double click on the File Wedge to open the dialog window to the wedges section, which is where we define new wedges for logging either to different files or by different conditions, or where we modify and delete existing file wedges. So I'm going to go ahead and click the new button to add a new file wedge. The name is just a descriptive field to represent this wedge. So for this demo, I'm going to monitor the fill level on a holding tank over time. So I'll call my file wedge high_tank_level. And I need the underscores because only letters, numbers, and underscores are permitted, so no spaces. Then we have the description field, which is optional and can provide additional details about what this file wedge does. So I'm just going to enter logs to CSV file when tank level changes. So just something descriptive. Now the initial mode is either enabled or disabled. The initial mode, so by default it's going to be enabled. So the mode indicates whether the file wedge will be active once you apply all your settings or not. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this at the default of enabled since I want to test the logging after I'm finished. Next, it's possible to specify a notification item for the purposes of notifying an HMI or SCADA that a file wedge action has just taken place. So I can click this button and it gives me an option to browse my available items in my OmniServer topics. So here I would need to specify a Boolean item defined in the protocol of the topic I'm going to monitor. And when this file wedge's trigger fires a logging event to the file, this notification item would be set to true. So that's a notification item. I could also specify a string item for the last error field, which if there's ever an error in the function of this file wedge, such as failure to log the value to the file for some reason, then that resulting error message would be populated in the specified last error item. So, and that's the same deal you select from the available items in your available topic. So you'd select a string item from the topic that you're monitoring. Just be aware that it isn't required to select a notification or a last error item. You only need to do that if you actually plan on monitoring the file wedge activity from a client application or any last error messages that were generated. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to leave these blank. So next we move on to the heart of the file wedge, which is the trigger section. Here's where we define the conditions on which a logging event to file will actually occur. First, we need to specify the trigger type. So if I click this drop down, you'll see there are a number of options, such as any new value, non-zero value or non-empty string, you define a high limit or a low limit, and several other options of conditional trigger. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm actually going to specify the default, which is any new value, because I want the value of my tank to be logged every time it changes, whether that is increasing or decreasing amount. That will allow me to keep a historical trend of where the level has been, which will allow me to see any abnormal behavior over time. So maybe I have a faulty pump or a leak or something, for instance. Now, working together with the type, now I need to specify the actual trigger item that I want the wedge to monitor. So if I click the ellipsis button here to the right, I want to go to my sensor 1 topic, and I'm going to select my tank level item. And you'll see it populates that with topic name dot item name syntax. And last in our trigger section here for this particular type is the deadband field. Now, deadband behaves differently depending on the trigger type specified. For our trigger type of any new value, the value of my item is logged every time the value differs from the previous value. After the initial trigger, the deadband here specifies a percentage that an incoming value of the trigger must drop below or rise above before the wedge is triggered again. So, for example, if the value of tank level was 10,000, and I set a deadband of 5 here, meaning 5%, then for the wedge to be triggered again, the value of the tank level item would need to increase or decrease by a measure of 500. So we wouldn't log again until the value was either greater than or equal to 10,500 or less than or equal to 9,500. You'll see there's an ABS flag here. Now that tells OmniServer that the number specified in this deadband field is to be interpreted as an absolute value and not a percentage. So using that previous example, if the ABS flag was enabled, then the deadband value is treated as the number 5 and not 5%. That means the next value of the trigger must be less than or equal to 9,995 or greater than or equal to 10,005 to be logged to file, using our example of the previous value being 10,000. So that's deadband. I'm going to leave deadband blank here as I do want every value change logged regardless of its magnitude. So next we have the reset section of the wedge configuration where you can tell the wedge what item to reset and to what value just before the action of the wedge is executed, which is logging to our file. Now, the most common use for the reset value is to reset the value of a trigger once the wedge has completed its action, thereby forcing the wedge to record all occurrences of the trigger, including recurrences of the same consecutive value. Now that use case is primarily if you set a trigger type of any new value, which we have in use here for this particular example. Now, for my tank field, there shouldn't be any instances where the same value would be sent consecutively. However, to account for instances where fill has potentially stopped, maybe there's a problem with a pump or something of that nature, and my level has stopped rising, which we would see in a log value is the same value being logged consecutively over and over again. So in order for that to be logged, I want to specify my tank level item here. So I'm going to go ahead and select sensor 1 topic and tank level again to specify my item, and I'm going to specify just a reset of 0. Because my tank level should really never be 0. So I'm going to specify a reset value of 0. And that way, after every occurrence of a value change from my actual sensor, OmniServer is going to write a 0 back to the tag. That way, the next value change for my sensor will still register as a new value, even if it hasn't actually changed. So in my actual log file, I'll see the same value being logged over and over again in the instance that my tank stops filling. Now, it is important to make sure when you're specifying a reset item and a reset value that your protocol for the item being reset isn't configured to write back to your device for that item. Otherwise, the value that you specify here would actually be transmitted back to the device itself, which could potentially cause some issues for you. Now, in my case, the tank level item is only being used in my protocol to read data from the sensor. As such, any of my writes back to that tank level item are internal only and won't actually result in a write command being sent to the sensor. Another situation where being able to reset the value is useful is logging barcodes, since there's definitely a possibility of the same code being received consecutively. Resetting the value in that fashion allows OmniServer to treat the same consecutive value as a new value change. So that's just another example of when this reset functionality could be useful for you. So moving on, the last section of our configuration, the event section, pertains to the actual logging of the process data, including the format and the destination file. First, we have the file name field, as you can see here, which is where we specify the location and name of the file we'd like to log our data to. So if I click the button here to the right, I can browse to a directory and then either select an existing file or enter the name of a new file that will be created by OmniServer when logging starts. So I'm just going to browse to my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder that I'm going to call OmniServer Wedge Logs. And that's going to give me convenient access to my log file. And I'm just going to define a new file name, tanklevel.csv, just for simplicity. So I'm going to go ahead and click open on that, and you'll see that I've got my path and my file name specified there. Next, I have several formatting settings to consider. The append text to the end of the file setting is pretty self-explanatory. When enabled, the next logging action will append the data to the end of the specified file. When you leave this disabled, the next logging action will actually overwrite the data in the specified file. Since I want to keep a record of each value change, I do want to go ahead and enable append text to the end of the file setting. The next setting, add a CRLF to the end of the data setting, is also pretty self-explanatory. When enabled, OmniServer will add a carriage return and a line feed to the end of the data being logged. This is useful for text file logging in order to place each instance of data on a separate line. We want to enable this setting, so I'm going to go ahead and check that box, since each value change that we're going to have from our tank level should be on a separate line in our CSV file. Otherwise, the data is sent as is, which would append our value changes on the same line. So then we have the text field, which is the actual data that's going to be logged itself. Similar to an OmniServer protocol, just typing in the message field is treated as standard ASCII text. What you see is what you get. So if I typed ABCD in there, that's the data that's actually going to get sent to my CSV file. So we don't want that. I'm actually interested for my tank level logging. I simply want the tank level and a timestamp, each in separate columns. Since I'm logging to a CSV file, which is a comma-separated variable format, that will allow me to open the file in Microsoft Excel. I want to specify my timestamp, then my tank value separated by a comma. So I'm going to go ahead and type sensor1.tanklevel.timestamp. So I want my timestamp to be first. So you'll see that inside my curly brackets here. I've got my topic name, .item name, .timestamp. It's just a special syntax that results in the timestamp of the current value of the item that I've specified, which is tank level, being included in place of that field in my text file. Then, as I said, I want that to be separated by a comma. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a similar syntax to specify my actual current item value. So I'm going to type sensor1.tanklevel.value, close curly bracket. And that's going to give me the current value of my tank level item. It's also valid syntax to specify just topic name .item name for the current value. Both of those result in the actual current value of the item being included in the message. I tend to use .value just because when I'm looking at this configuration, it's very, very clear what that variable is actually representing. Now, the text field also supports expressions inside the curly brackets. For instance, my tank level raw value is measured in liters. Being here in the US, I want to report it in gallons. Now, since I know there are 0.264 gallons in a liter, what I can do is I can go inside my curly brackets just after value, and I can specify the division operator, which is the / and then .264. And that's going to take my raw value and divide it by 0.264, which is going to give me the resulting value logged in my CSV file in gallons. Now, there are many valid operators that can be used for expressions in OmniServer wedges. That's a topic that's beyond the scope of this video. Now, if I do click the help button here, that'll launch my OmniServer help file. And notice that there's a link here at the bottom for expressions for the text field. If I click that link, you see that the help file here goes into much greater detail on the possible simple and complex expressions that are all possible within those curly brackets for creating, for doing some additional processing on the value before you log it. So I'm going to go ahead and close the help file. Now that I've defined all the sections of my file wedge, I just need to click OK to apply that. And for the purposes of this video, I've ensured that my tank level value will be changing, so I can show you the resulting CSV file in Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out of here. I'm going to go over to my OmniServer Wedge log folder that I created, and you'll see that my tank level.csv file is already there, which means I'm already logging data to this file. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that in Microsoft Excel. And if I expand these columns out, you'll see that I've got exactly what I was expecting to see. In my first column, I have a timestamp that corresponds to the value that comes in the second column. And my value in gallons is displayed there with the corresponding timestamp to the left. So as you can see, it's just that simple. The File Wedge in OmniServer is very simple to configure and gives you the ability to log your non-standard device data to file for easy analysis and troubleshooting of your process.